Welcome back to Neverland, everyone, and to our Hook podcast. This week, we have Scott Brody on the show, who was the stand-in for Mr. Robin Williams during the filming of Hook. And welcome to the show, Scott. We've talked several times via message, but not in person. It's been a while.
Yes.
So thank you for being on the show today. This is exciting.
It's very exciting.
So why don't you talk about your beginnings in entertainment? Prior to Hook, I'm sure you've been a stand-in and an actor. So what kind of led you into the field?
I think or as I tell people anyway, from the moment I was born, I think I came out of the womb, pointed to a TV, which was probably some monitor at the hospital. And I said, that's what I want to do. So literally all my life I've wanted to be an actor or do something in the TV and film field, and fell in love early with understanding and watching TV and movies, but mostly TV. And like some of my earliest things, actually, a lot of the shows that I still watch and am big fans of to this day all came from my childhood, and a couple of them were started the year that I was born. And I was born right before them, so they're all a part of me, including Star Trek and the Monkees. And I've gotten to meet actors from and all the Monkees and whatever. So through the years, I was a gigantic Happy Days fan, first of all, and the whole gang are like some of my major favorites. So strangely enough, when Robin Williams first came on as Mork, I fell in love with him right away, and then of course there was the spin-off show Mork and Mindy. So I was a big fan of his right from the beginning. and it's actually funny because when I wound up becoming his stand-in or whatever, my roommate from college, I had called him and told him that I was going to be Robin's stand-in. And he's like, "You love Robin Williams." And I'm like, "I know that. You know that, but I can't tell him that." But there was definitely a like greatness that was going on right from the beginning. So anyway, through the years, and because of people like Ron Howard, and I'm a big Rocky fan, so Sylvester Stallone, and I'm a big MASH fan, so Alan Alda, and all these people that were able to write and direct as well kind of got me very interested in that whole thing. And so when I went to college, which I went to Hofstra University in Long Island, New York, and I originally tried to double major communications, television, and film with theater because I wanted to do all three and whatever. But at the time, the two parts really didn't connect all that much. In fact, most of the actors in the theater department were all, at the time, they're like, "We don't do television." And I looked at them and said, "You don't make money." So I wound up basically going the route of TV and film, and learned all the behind the scenes stuff as well as acting. And I became like one of the only actors who was in like every show, because I was always willing to act and do everything. In fact, the head of the department once asked me, he said, "Scott, is there any show that you're not in?" And I said, "Well, the news, but if you want to do a story on me being in all the other shows, then I can be on that. When I got out of college, I decided, I wanted to pursue this career as an actor and writer and maybe director or whatever. And I was already working on a script about summer camp because I was a big camp counselor all through the years. In fact, when I worked on Hook, that summer I was supposed to go back to camp as usual, but Hook ran so long into August that I made it up to camp as a celebrity for the last 4 days. um, but it was funny because our first time, as soon as we saw Neverland, Robin actually said, he's like, "This is like camp," and I said, "Yeah, actually, very much is." So, but anyway, so I started working on this first script right actually during at the end of college, and then my roommate was a fraternity brother of mine from college in Florida, and we were in Hollywood, Florida, um, and uh, and then I was going to move to Hollywood, California. But I started working on this script called Summer Kind of Fun about summer camp. And Davy Jones of the Monkees was actually he was directing and starring as Fagin in Oliver down in Florida. And I went to see the show, got to meet him, and he was there for 2 months. And for some reason, I decided to call him and see he must be staying at the hotel that the show was playing in. And I did better than Marcia Brady that I got through, and they put me through to his room, but he wasn't there, so they asked if I would leave a message. So I told him Scott Brody of Broad Productions called, and I left my number. And then about an hour later, he called me, and I was like, humming, what do I say now, or whatever. I told him about the script that I just written, and he's like, "Great, I would. I'm here for 2 months. I'd love to read it. Drop it by the hotel." And he was the very first person to ever read a script of mine, which is very cool and very funny. And he actually tried to pass it on to a producer who wasn't as interested or whatever. But yeah, that was my start in that part of things. In the meantime, I started doing a couple commercials, non-union, and one played in Spain, where I play a drummer, which I do drum, and the other was an aspirin, General Aspirin commercial, and you can actually find it on YouTube. It played in Canada and upstate New York, and I basically am the sound guy for a camera crew for a news person, and the news person says that she's ready to shoot, and the cameraman says, "I thought you had a headache," and she's like, I did, but I took aspirin." And I'm just in the background with headphones on and the sound guy. But then I was an extra in Parenthood, and Parenthood directed by Ron Howard. So there was my Happy Days connection, and I got to meet him and Steve Martin, and I was just at the very beginning of the movie, as the credits come up or whatever, I'm in the very far background, walking in front of a bus, and then I'm also at the baseball stadium right at the beginning of the movie. But I got to be on Universal Studios property. The place wasn't even built yet and open in Florida, but that's where they were basically stationed and ready to do Parenthood. And so as the amusement park and everything was being built, I was one of the first people to go there for a costume fitting. So that was pretty cool. And I decided to make my way So those were my early credits of like actually anything big or whatever. So then I decided, it's time to make my break or whatever, and I decided I'm moving to the only place that film and TV, takes place or whatever at the time was Hollywood, California. And when I got out there, I was, going to do this or whatever. And I saw a little ad in the newspaper that said, be an extra in Hook, be a pirate. And I sent in my picture and resume. And first of all, I'll show you the picture that I sent in so you can probably see how I got the job. But the strange thing around it was I sent this picture and resume in. I saw this little clipping in the newspaper, and I didn't hear anything for like 3 months. So I'm sitting in my apartment one day, working on a rewrite of my next script, which at the time was called Mr. Peter Pan, which it had nothing to do with Peter Pan, but it was about a guy like me who didn't want to grow up. And I'm working on a rewrite of that, watching Dead Poet Society on tape, with Robin, and that's playing. And all of a sudden, the phone rings, and I go to answer it, and they say, "Is this Scott Brody?" I said, "Yes." They said, "Are you 5'8"? I said, "Yes." "You have light brown hair?" Basically, "How'd you like to be Robin Williams stand-in as Peter Pan?" And I said, "That's really weird. I'm working on Mr. Peter Pan. I'm watching Robin, and you're asking me to be his stand-in?" So after I dropped the phone for about a second, I picked it up and said, "Yes." And they said, "Great. Well, you'll be working with Robin Williams, Dustin Hoffman, Steven Spielberg, Bob Hoskins, Julia Roberts, and we're going to pay you $600 a week." And I literally said, "You're going to pay me?" and and they said, "Yep, and you don't have the part yet. We just have to have you come to the studio and make sure you're the right size, and then that'll be that." And that's the amazing story of actually how I got on Hook. And let me show you this picture that may better say why I was probably picked as Robin's stand-in.
And there was so much, I guess, wouldn't you agree that there was so much hype around the film? And apparently the set was like a closed set only to celebrities who were coming in to visit. It was something that was very protective. Like they really wanted to make sure that nothing leaked about the film, right? So.
Oh yeah. We didn't know that, or I didn't know that, until we got there, and
Yeah.
and then realized how big of a thing this was really going to be.
So did you have to meet Robin ahead of time? Like, did he have to give you his own approval?
No, and in fact, it's weird because the stand-ins, which isn't necessarily normal or whatever, most of us were the only non-union people on the set, which wound up to a reason why we were able to be fired. And actually, Robin saved my job early on. And we started February. In the beginning of April, one day, I was sitting there, and one of the second assistant directors came up to me, and he's like, "Scott, we just want you to know that today's going to be your last day. Steven's not happy with the stand-ins, and they're getting rid of all of you." And there was no real reason or what we did wrong or whatever. And all of a sudden, it was that's it. And the only thing that I had decided from the very beginning of the film was that by the end or whatever, I was going to get Robin's autograph and Steven's autograph maybe, and Dustin or whatever. So at the end of the night, I told all these people it's my last day and it's all horrible and whatever. At the end of the night, I waited right outside the studio for a second just to get Robin's autograph. So I had a piece of paper and I said, Robin, could you sign this? And he said, who's it for? And I said, it's for me because today's my last day. And he's like, what are you talking about? And I said, well, they told us that all the stand-ins are being laid off, and Steven's not happy and whatever. So, that's it. And, I was starting to like tear up and definitely was upset. And he's like, well, I'm happy with you. You're doing a fine job. And I was like, well, that's all I wanted to know was that, you were happy and whatever. So, it's okay. And you could tell I was probably ready to immediately or whatever. And he goes, don't worry about it. And I was like, well, I just wanted to make sure, you were happy or whatever. And then, he made me feel better and signed the thing and went off. And I had to go back into the studio to get my bag with my stuff before I left. And as soon as I walked in, the first assistant director said to me, he's like, Scott, you're back. And I'm like, yeah, I just came in to grab my bag. And he goes, no. It came from Steven himself. You're back with us. You'll be working tomorrow or whatever. And I was like, oh, wow. I didn't ask for that. And that was quick. And now what do I do when I go in and then I didn't know what to feel or whatever. And when I came in the next day, I felt horrible or whatever. And thank God for Robin. Came up to me, first person right away, and he's like, listen, I wasn't able to save everybody or whatever, but I was. You're going to get yelled at no matter what you do. First thing today, it's going to be wrong, and you're going to get yelled at, so just handle it. And I thanked him, profusely or whatever, and, everyone was in shock and couldn't believe what happened or whatever. And but things got a lot better from that point. There was a lot of tension at the time. We had just started working with the Lost Boys, and things were very different from even the beginning when we were at Culver Studios doing all the England stuff. Once the Lost Boys came in, there was a lot of different working with people or whatever. And then once we got to the Pirates and everything, everyone got to know each other, and we had worked together so long. And there's other great stories where
Can I ask a question? When you came
Sure.
back that next day, did Steven say anything to you, or did he acknowledge
no,
it?
He did yell at me right away. On the first shot was actually when Robin Peter first meets Rufio or whatever, and he's like pulling the sword from him or whatever, and somehow I did exactly the way it was explained or whatever, to pull the sword or brush the bush off of me or whatever it was, and but immediately got yelled at for it. But the only person that I did have a talk with was the person who actually hired me, the person in charge of the extras casting. and she was furious because she had already found a replacement for me who actually was on the set that day, and so I saw who was going to take over for me, and he was just a utility stand-in that day. Um,
Wow.
but yeah,
Yeah, some people
it was
must have not
very
been
tough.
happy, but like that shows what type of person Robin was.
Oh, absolutely. And he felt bad for the other two stand-ins that were working. That and all of us really what I think it came down to, because the questions I was asked were a little ridiculous. Like when I confronted the extras casting person, I said, could you please? Yeah, she was furious. She's like, nobody gets away with what you just did. And I was like, I want you to know, I didn't go and try and go over your head or do anything. This was all on Robin. I was okay, but can you please tell me what I did wrong so that it never happens again? Because this is the worst feeling in my life.
Yeah.
And so she really didn't have a full reason, and started asking like, why does Steven know your name? And I was like, I don't know. He heard it somewhere. And she's like, well, directors don't know stand-ins names. Why does he know yours? And I'm like, I
That
asked him.
sounds so Hollywood of her to say that.
And so I said, I don't know. He heard it somewhere. And she goes, well, did you ever notice that when he uses your name, he's never happy about it? And I said, well, that's kind of funny because when I was doing push-ups over a bed of nails the other day with a Lost Boy on my back, he looked up and said, Scott, is there anything you won't do? And I thought it was a friendly type of thing or whatever, but I guess I was wrong. That's when I realized that the only reason that we were probably fired was because we were the only group that was allowed to be fired because we were non-union. And so whatever tension or whatever, there's the group that I can,
Yeah.
lay off.
It sounds like it was probably the most uncomfortable and not fun experience for Steven. He said it on several occasions for several interviews. He really doesn't want anything to do with the film. What did you witness? What were your thoughts on being on set? Was it as dramatic as a lot of people made it out to be? Was it as horrible of an experience to make the movie?
Oh no, it's the greatest thing. In fact, I have prepared. I'm going to tell you about the very first day. Um, here I am. Never was a stand-in before, never anything, and here I am. Catapulted into one of the biggest movies in Hollywood being made at the time, with mega stars that were all true to my heart, and someone who wanted to be an actor, writer, and director. Here I am learning comedy from one of the greatest, Robin Williams, learning drama from Dustin Hoffman, and learning directing from Steven Spielberg, and getting paid to do it. And I'm in a position as a stand-in where I have to work with all of them and learn or whatever. And Dustin at the time wanted to learn about directing. So he was there every day on the set. In fact, for the first 3 months, he wasn't even used, but he was on the set every single day trying to get into character, learn about the character, do some rewriting, and find himself. But also, they're kind of helping Robin be more dramatic, and also because he was interested in directing, he would ask Steven all the questions about directing, and Steven would tell us, and I was in class. So, I got him to ask the questions for me, and I was learning everything. He said, in order to make Hook, seem scarier and bigger than life and whatever. And Dustin being only 5'3" or whatever, that is really short. If you shoot from a low angle and shoot up at Hook, then he looks gigantic, and it's really like an imposing adult type of thing looking down on the person. So that was one of the things I learned right away. So here I am the first day, and I actually was going to keep a diary about the first day, about every day, but I wound up only writing about the very first day, and yet I can tell the story without reading it, but it's even better because I have it written right here. So this is day one, Thursday, February 21st, Hook. I arrived at 9 a.m., signed the papers, met some of the crew, and learned basically what Robin does in a scene. I saw Steven Spielberg in and out for a few moments. He was wearing a white baseball cap. I met the two other stand-ins who were Maggie Smith's and Caroline Goodall's stand-ins. And then the next thing I heard is Robin Williams screaming, "This is no E.T., no Close Encounters. This is a new movie. Here he is, the director, Steven Spielberg." Robin and Steven entered the set. Dustin Hoffman was reading a script on the side. It was announced that Steven has a welcoming tradition before the start of every movie, when he has a toast that he makes, and then all of a sudden a 4-person marching band started playing Raiders of the Lost Ark. Steven yelled out, "Wrong movie." Then the people read out dedications to the cast, and the band left playing Close Encounters theme. Steven made a champagne toast to everyone to have fun and enjoy themselves on the set, and then things got started. Now, I was standing on the side, waiting for a scene, or waiting actually during this moment, and Whoopi Goldberg was standing right next to me. She had come to the set the very first day, and the day before, she was nominated for Color Purple for the Academy Award. So Whoopi Goldberg had showed up to say hi to Steven, Dustin, and Robin, and then congratulated her on her Oscar nomination. As the day went on, and we all got tired, Dustin watched every shot closely, learning from Steven and encouraging and coaching Robin. Steven taught Dustin and me how to create dominance in the scene by the way it's shot, which is what I just talked about. And then the greatest moment was at the end of the day, and Maggie Smith, her makeup had worn out at the end of the day, and we were done with her shots as Granny Wendy in the bed. And so she was let go, and we were going to do a last shot of close-up of Robin as Peter, and it's in the scene. And this is the very first day, so start with one of the most important scenes. But it's when Granny Wendy says, "Peter, don't you know who you are?" She holds up the book with the picture, and he's standing there. No. But that was the whole scene, back and forth with Maggie. And now on the stage next door, Bugsy was shooting at the same time. So that very first day, Barry Levinson, who had worked with Dustin in Rain Man and worked with Robin in Good Morning Vietnam and knew Steven. He came over and he was going to watch this last scene. Now, Dustin had taken it upon himself to jump in the bed and read Maggie Smith's lines to Robin and get him to act more dramatically. So he's busy doing that. I'm standing in between Barry Levinson and Steven Spielberg. My first day, didn't know any of them, and just in shock that here I am in the middle of greatness, And Barry Levinson actually turns to Steven and myself, and we're watching Dustin, give Maggie Smith's lines and helping Robin, and he just goes, aren't these two great? And Steven smiled and was happy, and I just sat there, mouth wide open, and just went, uh-huh. Dustin said of Robin that he thinks faster than his own brain. Robin joked about circumcision. Dustin told Robin they're halfway to Broadway. Robin summed up this day and said the first day was weirdly wonderful day. What an experience. Like I said, I've told that story a million times, and it is so fresh in my head that I didn't even need that. And it was only last week when I was gathering stuff or whatever that I knew I had written about the first day, but I wanted to see what day it was, and found out it was February 21st, because I knew it went from February 1991 till August.
For being on set, you said that you were stand-in for certain specific scenes. Can you kind of go through those specific scenes that made it into the film that we would know?
Okay, yeah. Well, I was a stand-in the whole time for Robin, so every scene with Robin in it, I was definitely standing in. Now, let's just let people know, because people are like, what does a stand-in do? I'm not the stunt double. A guy, Keith Campbell, wearing a kind of makeup mask to look more like Robin. He was his stunt double. But I was the stand-in, and what a stand-in does is basically he's the same height, 5'8", as the main actor or whatever. And when they're first lighting the scene, setting up all the lights around for the main action of where Robin's going to be, basically they have me stand there, and they set up the lighting around me and practice the camera moves and decide what to do. And then when they're all ready to go or whatever, they say, Scott out, Robin in. He comes in, acts, gets all the credit in the world. And I'm left to do, nothing and watch it and make sure I have everything correct for the next scene. And every setup of the movie, I basically am the person there for the lighting. And there were times when Bob Hoskins' stand-in was his assistant. So there was times when, Bob's assistant had to actually do things for Bob. So they needed somebody to stand there and be me for the lighting. So I got to do that a couple times. I got to stand in actually for Nana, the dog, when she's in the doghouse, and when the phone gets buried, or and then at the end when he digs up the phone. But throughout the movie, there were also pieces of me, because Robin was doing something and they need like just a small shot of a close-up of something or whatever that are actually me, but you think it's Robin in the movie. Or like in the case of Phil Collins when he plays the inspector and he's reading the note that was first left. Well, for the close-up of the note, it's shot over Phil Collins' shoulder. But he had already done the scene or whatever, and they just really needed the close-up of what was written on the note. So I put on the jacket that he was wearing, and they shot it over my shoulder. But there's a scene when they cut to the close-up of the actual scar, the hypertrophic scar, and Hook says to Smee, show me the scar. I want to see the hypertrophic scar. And they, Bob Hoskins, as Smee lifts up Robin's shirt, and they cut to this close-up of a fake scar with a hook in it and a hairy chest. That's actually my chest. And the reason that they used my chest and not Robin's was because there was a scene that got cut out of the movie, as in many scenes, but one where Robin, being the very hairy person that he is, the Lost Boys look at him and say, if you want to be a kid, you got to look like a kid. And they pull out these swords and pretend to shave him down. Well, in real life, Robin had to shave his arms and his chest every single day from that point of filming on. In fact, for him, he probably had to shave twice a day. But then they said, oh, we forgot to get that scar shot, but it's supposed to be before Robin's chest is shaved. Scott, how hairy is your chest? Very hairy. Great, we'll use you. And then to give you a great story that will relate to the actual filming of that scar shot, because now if you watch the film, because that scene where he's shaven down, it was taken out of it. So if you watch the movie and watch it now very closely, you'll notice there's the scene when Robin's going to be slingshot across Neverland, and he's got his shirt off, and he doesn't have a hair on his body, and he has this fake scar on it that you can kind of see, but not really. But before that, they lift the shirt, and he's got this nice scar with a hook in it on this very hairy chest, so it doesn't really make sense in the movie, but you don't notice that if you're not paying attention, then you don't know the story. When that shot was done, wasn't until the actual scar shot, the close-up shot with my chest, wasn't done until the very end of the movie. And the couple days before, actually one day before it was actually shot, it was the very last week of the movie, and the first assistant director was renting a beach house at Malibu Beach, and it had invited all of the cast and crew to come to a beach party on that Sunday. And Dustin actually had a house 4 houses away, so he came with all his kids, who some of them are in the movie as well. And we hung out and had this great big beach party. Now, I, Mr. Camp Counselor, as I said before, spent the whole day basically with Dustin's kids and some of the other kids or whatever, and taught them all how to body surf in the water and do crazy dives in the pool, and just had a great day. Now, we had been working since February until August, every single weekday, from like 7 in the morning till 8:30 at night or whatever. and you didn't pay attention to what it was like outside, which in California it was always nice or whatever, and we didn't care or whatever. But here we are on the weekend in August, and it's this beautiful day, and I'm from the East Coast originally, and I didn't even think about it or care that I was getting really sunburned and whatever. But at the end of the day, I was bright red, basically. So I came in the next day and I said, Scott, we're going to get that scar shot today. And I said, does it matter that I'm bright red? Nah, we'll cover that up with makeup. Okay. So I am sitting in the makeup chair, shirt off, bright red, and Robin walks in, sees me right away, just takes one look at me and goes, ouch, ouch. And I said, no, E.T., it doesn't hurt, it just looks bad. And he goes, ouch.
That's too funny. Well, why don't we talk about what you got to keep after the film? Or were there any props, and were there any costumes that you got to keep after the show, and any gifts you got from the cast? And what was that last day like on set?
The last day, the last official day, was a little weird, and actually on the last shot, me and one of the other stand-ins were inside the ship, dressed as Hook and Smee, I believe, kind of going back and forth in the ship, because you see the shadows or whatever when Robin and Dustin were actually out on the pier, on the dock there or whatever, and hugged at the very, very last moment. So we didn't actually get to experience that with everyone because we were actually inside on the ship. But then afterwards, it was very emotional, and everyone was hugging each other or whatever. Now, I wound up working still for another week or two, because they were still doing, other little shots and other like close-up stuff and whatever that Robin had to do. And that was actually the first time I really got to, except for the scene where Julia, as Tink, becomes big. That was the only time I actually saw her or worked with her for a minute. But during this extra week or whatever afterwards, I got to actually watch her do a bunch of her things with all the giant props. And you asked me if I kept any props or whatever. Well, I was given a pair of my glasses that I wore as Peter Banning, those glasses. My set that I was using as a stand-in, which I had put my own lenses in. Unfortunately, I had those for a while, and the pair that I got afterwards were very, very close and very similar. In fact, I have those. But the original pair that I had, they kind of got ruined a little bit, and then I think they got lost or stolen or whatever in summer camp a year or two after. But and then I have script pages, and I have all these gifts that we were given. A copy of the hardbound early version of the script from Robin as a gift. I have some pages of the script, and I have a couple, different things, and shirts and hats, and maybe we'll get time or whatever to tell a really great story about this. is now a really famous Mork doll. And so we were working together on the set, and Charlie Korsmo came in, and he was really upset, yelling and screaming, and he couldn't understand things. And he went up to Robin, and he's like, why, why? And Robin's like, what's your problem, kid? And so Charlie said that he just found out that they're making action figures for Hook, and because Robin and Dustin won't let them use their image, then they can't use Charlie's image for an action figure of his. And he was upset. And he's like, Robin, why would you refuse to let them use your image? And Robin explained, he said, you don't understand, Charlie. I have nightmares of these toys and things with my image, that kids will take it and rip the head off of these things, and I don't like it at all. I literally have nightmares. So I said to him, I said, I have this Mork doll, and he's like, oh no, I hate those things or whatever. So I grabbed it and I brought it to the set the next day, and it was early in the morning, first thing in the morning, and I had to stand in for Robin. And so I was wearing my green shorts, and I had the Mork doll sticking out of the pocket, because it was in my pocket of the shorts. And Robin saw it from a distance immediately, and he actually looked directly at me and just went, fuck you. And then Charlie Korsmo comes running over, sees the doll as well, grabs it, and goes right up to Robin, and he's like, Robin, you hate these things or whatever? And he ripped the head off, actually. And he's like, you have a problem with this? And Robin was literally freaking out over the thing. Now, the part that I actually forgot to tell you, when I first brought in this doll, one of the painters or set people or whatever actually made a Peter Pan costume for him. So we actually made the doll, it was wearing this Peter Pan costume. and which I wish I still had that costume. I don't know what happened. But so anyway, Robin had his freak out moment, and Charlie had his thing, and I was a little pissed that he pulled the head off, but it goes back on. So whatever. They had their moment. So during lunch break or whatever, I sat outside the studio and had a quick lunch, or we had just come back from lunch, and I wasn't needed inside the studio. So I was sitting outside. It was a nice sunny day. And of all the days possible, Pam Dauber showed up that day. And I said, this is amazing. I brought in this Mork doll today. And Pam looked at it and she goes, oh my God, Robin hates those things. And I said, oh yes, I found that out quite clearly. And she goes, can I borrow this? I need to make fun of Robin with it. And I'm like, oh, he already saw it and he wasn't too thrilled. And she goes, oh no, I'm going to tell him. And remember, it was still dressed as Peter Pan. She goes, I'm going to tell him I just bought this at the studio store. And I don't know what she did or whatever. She went inside happily with the doll. She came out 2 hours later or so, handed me back the doll, and thanked me like extremely much because she said I just had so much fun with Robin, all because of this doll. Thank you so much. And I'm like, I'm a dead man. But so there's a great story, behind this Mork doll, and and it's funny because Robin's next movie was Toys.
Scott, all of these stories have been
So
amazing. So I really appreciate you being on the podcast today. I know you have more. Thank you so much for being on the show and for keeping the Hook experience alive, because you do such a great job with that. So thank you.
Let me just say to all of you, good form in doing this, and hopefully bangarang for everyone watching.